So in today's video, we're going to talk about how we can let go of guilt and resentment and how we can manifest fast using the power of forgiveness. Also going to talk about some of the concepts from Neville as well as the book Reality Transurfing, which is written by the Russian writer Vadim Zeland. By the end of this video, you'll learn how guilt and resentment have been holding you back from getting what you want in life. Not only that, I'm also going to teach you the exact steps you need to take in order to let go of the guilt and resentment so you can start manifesting faster. Ultimately, manifestation comes down to who we are as individuals and how we feel on the inside. I wanted to present today's video from this holistic perspective because the more we are able to forgive ourselves from the guilt that we have towards accomplishing our goals or the resentment we have towards the people who are related to our goals directly or indirectly, the more easily we'll be able to accomplish this. So let's start with the quote from Neville, and this comes from the book Feeling is the Secret. Sensation precedes manifestation and is the foundation upon which all manifestation rests. Be careful of your moods and feelings, for there is an unbroken connection between your feelings and your visible world. Your body is an emotional filter and bears the unmistakable marks of your prevalent emotions. I think it's pretty clear here what Neville is trying to tell us. The feelings and emotions that we have on the inside are more like these compass that are pointing on the directions that we're heading, and the emotions and the feelings we have, if they're not really reflecting our desires, we must change them in order to get towards where we want to go. So the two biggest blocks that are holding us back from getting what we want are guilt and resentment. These emotions are hindering our manifestations, and I'm going to explain more why this is true. So let's talk about guilt first. Guilt blocks us from truly believing in ourselves. If the guilt is somehow related to our desire, then it acts like a hindrance to our manifestation. For example, if one feels guilty about spending their family money in a bad investment, if they've already spent that in the past, this feeling of guilt is going to hold them back from thinking straight, as well as focusing more on the loss of money. So the more they're focusing on the loss, the more they'll feel like I'm not worthy of having more, right? And that becomes their story. So they're assuming the identity of someone who is bad with money. That's the story they have settled for themselves. So what is guilt? Guilt arises when your behaviors don't match up with your own expectations. It happens when somehow you have violated your own standards of life or your own rules that you have set for yourself. If you're not aware of the book Reality Transurfing, I mean, it might be a really difficult book for some to read, but one of the biggest takeaways for me from this book was this concept of guilt. And how it holds us back. So according to the book, guilt is a form of excess potential, which it basically means it's an excess energy that is being created that in order to be balanced has to be compensated by punishment. Because a lot of people, when they're feeling guilty, they are expecting somehow to get punished, right? The feelings of guilt will always produce a script that includes a punishment, whether you are conscious of what is happening or not. Your subconscious follows the script and makes you pay. This is another thing that really struck me as I was reading this book a couple of years ago. Guilt goes hand in hand with inferiority complex. If you feel inferior in any ways, it is because you have compared yourself to others. It is as if you create trials where you play the role of judge over yourself. And this is one of the greatest concepts that I discovered from the book Reality Transurfing, because at that time, I used to feel very inferior compared to others, because as I was starting my business, I started seeing how inferior I felt compared to other photographers. And it wasn't like I was a bad photographer or anything, but just because I was so new in the business, I was just feeling inferior. And I started to realize that this feeling of inferiority had been with me throughout my entire life. And I was the one who was actually judging myself. And it wasn't like people out there were all judging me. And at that time, it just felt like I couldn't ever forgive myself for doing those deeds. But looking back, it just feels silly, like why was I even punishing myself through guilt all these years? So let's keep reading more here. One of the best ways people can let go of guilt is by forgiving themselves. So that's what it says. People have learned that asking for forgiveness dissolves the excess potential of guilt, and it really works. So let's talk about resentment now. Resentment creates an energy block around us and stops us from creating a trusting safe world around us. If there is resentment towards someone who is directly or indirectly tied to our manifestation, we are reinforcing what we don't want and creating more of that unconsciously. Especially when we are on the path of manifesting and we find someone like a third party, or somebody who is kind of pissing you off in this process of manifesting. It could be a boss, or it could be the seller who is trying to sell you the house. If you start being resentful towards them, you're just creating this excess energy, just like in the book Reality Transurfing, how it says that excess potential. It just basically means excess energy, but you're creating this excess energy which is holding you back from creating what you want, and it's making you create what you don't want instead. So what is resentment? Resentment arises when the behaviors of others don't match with your expectations. It happens when you feel like somehow that person or a group of people have violated your standards of life or didn't go by your rules. And I love this quote by Nelson Mandela. He says, resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies, right? And that's the thing about resentment. Going back to that earlier quote from Feeling is the Secret, when we are being really resentful, we feel a certain way in our body. And when we are feeling resentful, we are so short-tempered, we can't think straight. And I feel like the blood doesn't even go to the frontal cortex of your brain where the thinking happens, and you can't think rationally when that happens. Now, let's talk about the key of letting go of guilt and resentment. And you probably have already guessed it, right? It's forgiveness. Through forgiveness, we can clear up both the feelings of guilt as well as resentment. In order to free ourselves of guilt, we must forgive ourselves. In order to free ourselves of the feeling of resentment, we must forgive the ones we have the grudges against. So let me clarify. In order to manifest, we don't have to forgive ourselves for every incident that we feel guilty for, but simply the ones that are related to our desires. And we don't have to forgive everyone who caused us harm, but only the people who could be related to our desires or the process of manifestation. Although you could be doing that just so you can start feeling better about yourself, because like I said, this resentment feeling is not a good feeling to hold in you, right? But what I wanted to make clear was, you don't have to forgive yourself for every little things that you feel guilty for in order to manifest what you want. And you don't have to forgive every person in your life you resent in order to start manifesting what you want, because that's just keeping you more in a more guilty state, and you feel like there's more work to do, and you get stuck in this constant state of forgiving and healing and all that kind of stuff. You just simply need to forgive the people who are somewhat related to your manifestations if there's any resentment involved. So let's talk about the different steps to forgiveness. First of all, you have to acknowledge the feelings. It's okay to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. Denying the feelings only makes them grow more and more, because what we resist tends to persist. It's important to remember that it's human to feel angry, depressed, ashamed, fearful, and any other feelings, and feeling emotions is a good sign, honestly. Next step to forgiveness is simply observing your thoughts associated with the feelings, right? When you feel this way, whenever you're feeling guilty or whenever you're feeling resentful, observe your thoughts. What are they saying? What are your thoughts saying about you and others when you are feeling guilty? What are your thoughts saying about you and others when you're feeling resentful? Observe these thoughts without agreeing or disagreeing with them, but simply notice they are there. Pause the video right here to write down these questions, right? What are your thoughts saying to you? What are your thoughts saying about you and others when you're feeling guilty or resentful? Write them down so you can actually check your thoughts without actually engaging on them. So now the third step is looking at this from a bigger picture. Why we do what we do. When we or someone else have violated our expectations, it is because of one of these reasons. They are hurt themselves, because hurt people hurt people. And if you're doing this exercise for guilt, just think of they as you, right? When you hurt yourself, you hurt other people, and that's why you feel guilty. Now, another reason is they were unaware or ignorant. That's the best they could have done at the time with that limited perspective. If they were more conscious at the moment, they could have done better. A lot of people, when they are unaware, they are being unconscious, they are not thinking straight, that's when they do shits that offend other people. If they were conscious enough to realize that they were hurting others, they might not have done that. And in the same way, if you have hurt other people, it was probably because you were unaware or ignorant. That may be one of the reasons. We have more reasons coming here. When people are doing stuffs to hurt others, they're probably doing it for a desperate desire to get love or attention from others. Sometimes when people feel loveless or they're trying to get love from other people, they can do stuffs that might hurt other people, and they're not even thoughtful about that fact. The other reason is they're doing it out of fear, as they were trying to protect themselves or their ego. A lot of times people hurt other people just because they think by hurting other people they'll be able to save themselves somehow. And these four reasons are the biggest reason why there's so much conflicts and wars going on in our societies today. And it's important to look at these reasons and ask yourself this question: is there any chance you can empathize with yourself or the ones that hurt you after looking at these reasons? Can you at least acknowledge that you could have been in the same place if any of those four reasons seem true for you? And can you at least see now that this is actually more normal than you think, like how people keep hurting other people due to the lack of awareness, due to lack of consciousness, due to the fear that they have inside of them, due to the lack of love? Can you feel like this is actually possible and this could happen to anybody? Now, after knowing the reasons for why people hurt each other, why we're stuck on this vicious cycle of getting hurt and hurting others, it's now time to make decision to let go of these emotions and be free. So it's time to take responsibility. By responsibility, I simply mean that even you yourself have been holding on to this emotion because you somehow unconsciously thought that having this emotion may keep you safe somehow. If you have been feeling guilty, it's probably because you think that it's gonna stop you from making more mistakes in the future. You can learn the mistakes and not feel guilty, because when you feel guilty, you are also blocking yourself from actually creating new forms of reality, because you're stuck in that vicious cycle of doing the bad thing, right? That's constantly repeating in your mind of what you did, and you'll be creating more of that. And the same goes for resentment, because you are feeling resentful because you think that somehow if you are resenting them, you are stopping other people from hurting you, and you don't want that to repeat ever from happening. But with resentment, you're basically doing yourself a disservice, because you are not taking any actions about this problem, but also at the same time, by feeling this shitty vibes, you are actually hurting yourself from actually doing better in life. That's what I mean by taking responsibility. So now let me ask you, how much better your life would be if you could let go of these feelings of guilt and or resentment right now? Like, really think about this. How much better your life would be if you could let go of these feelings, these unwanted feelings of guilt and resentment right now. Now, there's this lot of stories attached with this identity you have formed yourself. Whether it's through guilt or resentment, you have an identity of who you have been with it, right? Do you want to really let the story go so you can be free of it? Also, do you really want to let these feelings go, which have been a huge part of your life for some time now? Could you let it go? Like, really be honest with yourself and ask yourself, could you let it go? Otherwise, you still have some more soul searching to do. Go back to these four reasons. So if you're really ready to move forward, let's talk about the final step, which is feeling and flushing it out. Observe the feelings just like before, how guilt and resentment feels in your system once again, okay? How it feels in your body. Do not give it any thought, and do not let your mind engage in any other stories, and just keep focusing on the feelings and observe how the feelings feel in your body. Do they feel like, is it a throbbing feeling? What kind of sensations are they creating in your body? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it throbbing? Is it static? Is it moving? Is it still? Which area of a body the feeling is present in? Is it in your stomach area, or is it in your gut area, or whatever area it is covering? Just be really focused on the feeling and breathe as you're doing it, okay? Now, as you're feeling these feelings, give them compassion and love for being here right now in this moment. Just feel them, right? Even if it's like hurting, even if it feels like pain, just give them compassion and love for being here, because they just want to flow, they just want to evaporate, because that's what feelings do. But the more you are resisting them, the more it remains in your system. So just give them love and compassion for being there. think or imagine in your mind that they just want to be gone anyway. They don't want to be staying here. Now, finally, give yourself compassion and love for doing this exercise, doing this work as you're doing it right now, right? As you are feeling these feelings and giving them compassion, give yourself also the compassion for doing this work, and give yourself love and compassion for being aware enough to be doing this job, because a lot of people won't even get to this stage of doing this work. A lot of people just want easy way out, but you're at least right here listening to this lecture all the way to the end, doing the work so you can feel better about yourself, so you can become a better person. Now the process of forgiveness is pretty much over, but now let's talk about living in the end. Once you do this effectively, once you have followed through all the steps and you have done this effectively, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to flush these feelings out and start feeling clear. But now it's time to live in the end. So ask yourself what it is that you truly want to be feeling, right? How do you want to be truly living your life? And how would it feel if you've already manifested that desire? Embody that feeling and start living from the end of that goal. Now think of your desire, whatever it is that you're trying to manifest, right? We haven't talked about your desire enough in this video, but think of your desire of whatever it is that you're trying to manifest and embody that feeling as if you've already had it. How would it feel like? Once you clear out your resentment and guilt from your system, it's going to be really easy for you to actually embody the feeling of your desire, feeling of your wish fulfilled, right? And that way you'll be able to manifest whatever you want in a more easy manner. Now that we've gone through this whole process, I want to end this video by reading a quote from Neville Goddard again. Okay? And this passage comes from the same book, Feeling is the Secret, and it's right after the passage that we read earlier in this video. So think feelingly only of the state you desire to realize. Feeling the reality of the state sought and living and acting on that conviction is the way of all seeming miracles. All changes of expression are brought about through a change of feeling. A change of feeling is a change of destiny. So that's what we were able to accomplish with this video. We were able to change the feelings that you had about guilt and resentment, and we were able to change that more into this empowered feeling. And just like Neville says, it's really true that when you change feeling of whatever you're feeling right now, you're also changing your destiny. So thank you for doing this work. I trust that you found this video helpful. Please let me know in the comment section below. And if there's any other topics you would like me to cover, please let me know that too. And with that, I want to wish you all the very best. Merry Christmas. Happy manifesting. Goodbye and namaste.